Oh my goodness, this is the third time I've tried to film this video tonight. First time, didn't like it. Second time, ran out of time, then went back to it, totally lost my train of thought. Third time, is the charm? Here we are. Hi everyone, nice to see you. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about how my relationship with food has changed since having a celiac diagnosis. I've been meaning to make this video for ages, but I wanted to do it now because of the recent law change in the UK, which means that more menus are getting calories written on them. So if you're not aware of that law, from, last Wednesday, if a restaurant employs over 250 people across their franchises, I think, they now have to put calories on the menu. Now, obviously, some people have feelings about that. I have feelings about that, but I thought I could include it in sort of this video. Just a content warning today, we will be talking about disordered eating, and if that's something that you don't want to hear right now, I totally understand. I'll see it in my next video. It will be a vlog, very chill. I'll be going out for dinner. But today we will be sort of talking about my personal journey with food and how that's changed. So to start off, I'm going to shoot us all the way back to my teenage years, but don't worry, I'm not gonna explain everything. So like a lot, I imagine, of young women, as soon as they hit puberty, around the same time as that is when body image issues start to develop, and that was certainly the case for me. I now know that that's not my fault. It is because of outside influences, like what we see on TV, magazines, adults close to me always dieting, you know, the normal things that a lot of young people experience. And that's not just for women, that's women and men as well, of course. So as a young person, I did have a lot of body image issues. I wouldn't necessarily say it was more than the average amount, which is pretty sad to think about, but it was there. It was festering in the back of my mind. The issue that I actually ended up having sort of came to light when I went to university. Now, I mentioned this a couple of times before, but I went to a musical theatre school. Don't ask me why, but I do have a degree in performing arts in musical theatre. Super useful, by the way. I learned some good things, what am I saying? Basically, up until like my second to last year of school, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I had a pretty rough last year at school. I was the head student at my girls' school, and I really struggled with the pressure, with the censorship. In parentheses, I wrote a lot of funny speeches for the school that I wasn't allowed to say. There was nothing crazy about it, just apparently we weren't allowed to have fun. But mostly how much I was taken out of class. And the only thing that really gave me joy was drama class. So I thought, well, naturally, I'll just do that as a degree. Anyway, so I get to musical theatre school. The first year I actually really enjoyed. It was super fun. I was like, here I am doing musical theatre. I'm hot shit. Just stupid things. But at the start of the second year, things kind of started to change for me. Now, musical theatre as a degree, incredibly stressful. As much as it is singing and dancing, it's a lot harder than it sounds, which sounds so ridiculous. We literally sung, danced, acted all day, but it was hard. But on top of all the singing, dancing, acting that was difficult, one of the interesting things that I can only talk about upon reflection, I didn't know at the time, but you are learning how other people see you from the outside, and you're always seeing yourself in a musical theatre degree, whether that's in dance, whether that's in performances, in recorded videos. I don't know if it's a good thing to learn, but a kind of a sense of awareness that you develop on how you look, on how you're posing, on if you're hitting the mark, spatial awareness, stuff like that. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, especially not when you're performing. But for me, that was probably one of the things that started to set off my disordered eating. But it wasn't just that either. So at the start of the second year, come back, ready to go. My whole year group, the 25 of us, we all got sat down, and basically our tutors had a reality check talk with us, and in very plain words told us that we all need to lose weight. Not something I'd personally say to a bunch of 19-year-olds, but you know, it happened, and unfortunately my little brain that had little body image issues throughout my teenage years sort of latched onto that, and it really started to fester. So for a long time after sort of musical theatre school, I resented them saying that to us. Now, unfortunately, I do understand why they say it, but it is horrible, and it would never be my choice of words. I wouldn't even suggest it. But the reason that they obviously told us stuff like this was that the industry, musical theatre industry, performance industry, acting industry, they do look for a specific body shape for most roles. Now, I'm not saying it's not gotten better, it's definitely improved, but I do not think that we are anywhere near having full body inclusivity in the acting industry or performance industry. Along with that chat, they talked to us about never getting tattoos or dyeing our hair a crazy color or getting crazy piercings, because you wanted to make yourself as hireable as possible, which meant that maybe if someone wanted you for a role, but then they're like, oh, they've got some tattoos that we need to cover up, that's more time, that's more money, we'll go for the other person. I've clearly rebelled from that, I've got lots of tattoos now, but anyway. To be honest, I've seen lots of people come out of NASDA, which is where I study, National Academy of Singing and Dramatic Arts, and they've done great with tattoos or whatever. But the tutors basically just wanted to, I don't know, give us all eating disorders. No, they just wanted to give us a reality check. Still don't love it, but you know. And that wasn't the only time. We had a couple more times when it was either said directly we needed to lose weight or insinuated that we needed to lose weight. And let me just reiterate, we're all 18 and 19, fresh out of school, very malleable minds. And so I think sometimes that can be a bit of a dangerous message. Well, it was for me. So during that second year, interestingly, I decided this ain't for me. I didn't really like the competitiveness. I didn't really like that type of industry, that body image standard. One time we had a tutor say to us, you have to really love musical theatre to do well in it, in the sense of you're going to go out, you're going to rehearse, and you're going to get more no's, far more noses than you're going to get yeses. Probably hundreds of no's before you get a yes, you know? And I thought to myself, do I really love it that much? No. My passion was always acting, and dance was pretty fun, and I did pick up dance pretty quickly because I'd done karate from like 15 years old, so I had a good flexibility and a good spatial awareness. Singing scared the crap out of me, but you know, we got there. Oh my god, bit of a sidebar. One of the things we had to do, and this is just torturous, it's just the worst thing that I've ever experienced. Well, okay, that's dramatic, it's not, but we had to do these things called performance prac, and basically you got a theme, you had to pick a song, and you had to sing in front of the entire school. It was about 70 or 80 students, and all the tutors, and then all the tutors would sit up the back like bloody America's Got Talent and give you feedback and make you do it again or make you do it like this. And for someone that was not confident in singing at all, it was it was torturous. I get quite an anxious tummy. I think I've talked about this as well. I get a very anxious tummy, so the whole day leading up to those performance pracs, I'd just be using the toilet, to say politely. There was generally nothing left inside by the time I got to performance prac. And that was their way of giving us audition practice. And the funny thing is, I've been to auditions and I've never reached that level of stress. So maybe it worked. I don't know. To be honest, I've never felt nervous in a job interview, and that could be why, but oh my god, was that extreme. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so in second year, that sort of messaging kind of got to me. Even though I decided I didn't want to do musical theatre, still part of my brain hung on to the you need to look a certain way aspect. And so I started exercising a lot, and I started not eating as much. And this behaviour was unfortunately reinforced by my tutors and peers that were all saying, oh, you look great. Oh, you look great. What have you been doing? You look great. You look so good, Morgan. And I knew it was purely my weight that I'd lost. I'll say this, I never got to a point where anyone was concerned about me, but the weight that I was at my thinnest was not good for me at all. It was not good for my mental health. I might have looked fit and healthy, but not up here. At the same time, I saw other students sort of going through the same thing, and especially someone in the year above me. They dropped a tremendous amount of weight in a very short time, and then ended up getting a lot of the lead roles. And that's not just because of their weight, of course. They are very talented. But it was that sort of subliminal messaging that sort of kept me at it. And it wasn't the happiest of times. Obviously, when you start to become that obsessed with food and losing weight, you can't be happy. In my third year of the degree, my last year, it got even worse. And I also went through my first real breakup. And I really started to obsess about running. And I would run 10, 18 kilometers a day. It was horrible. My knees probably still never recovered from that. I was just running on concrete with crappy shoes. And I also had a Fitbit, and I had one of those Fitbits that tracks your calories in and out and tells you how much you've burned for the day, how much you have left. And I hyper focused on that, and I just obsessed about it. And it got really yucky in my brain, and it's interesting because calories, yes, they're an energy measurement, but they are not the be all and end all of nutrition. Anyway, around the same time as that, I was also subconsciously gravitating to foods that didn't contain gluten, which was interesting. Basically, a musical theatre degree is a very physically tiring degree, and you have to be active a lot, and you have to be wearing little freaking leotards and jazz outfits and skimpy little musical theatre clothes. And I hated being bloated and tired. And I don't know how I figured it out, but I ended up basically just eating rice, quinoa, cashew nuts and vegetables throughout the day. It was super boring, but I was like, oh, I don't actually get bloated from this. I'd never made the connection that it was gluten until years later, but it's interesting looking back now and going, oh, she knew she had celiac disease way back then somewhere deep down. I was still eating gluten in the night, of course, and throughout this whole time I was having my diarrhea or constipation, which I've talked about a lot. I just bounced back and forth between the two. Very unpleasant, isn't it? And yeah, I just never felt very well. I did not have a very good diet at the time regardless, but it's just interesting to look back and realize that I was sort of subconsciously removing gluten. Anyway, I leave NASDA. I have a very low point over the summer that year, but I finally start to get out of it. I get a job at Nissan as a warranty advisor. I do make the strangest choices, I swear to God. Hated it. Worst job ever. Oh my, I cannot tell you how bad that job was. I still had a lot of eating issues, but it had chilled out since moving away from the musical theatre environment. And I think just sort of being away from that environment, being away from that pressure to look a certain way, to comparing yourself to others, I think was just really good for my mind. So I went into a job that I hated. I still love performing. I mean, look at me. I love acting and stuff like that, but I just sort of needed a break from it because of I'd gotten myself into some terrible headspaces and associated that whole industry with my terrible headspace. Yes, if I'd understood that, I probably could have undone that work and found a really positive, happy place in it, but I didn't. So I'm a warranty advisor for Nissan Care. That lasted 9 months. Good Lord. Loved the people I worked with. Horrible job. Shortly after that, I finally go and try to figure out what my gut issues are, and guess what it was? You wouldn't believe it. I had celiac disease. And at that time, I still had these negative associations with food. But once I got diagnosed, that really changed for me. And I even would go as far to say that I feel lucky that I got diagnosed with celiac disease, because it completely changed my perspective about eating and slowly started helping me work away at my disordered eating habits. You might be asking why? Who would want celiac disease? Yeah, good point. The reason that I'm talking about is that I was very lucky. I was one of those people that after 2 weeks of going on a gluten-free diet, I noticed a tremendous amount of difference, which is very, very lucky because I know not everyone experiences that. I felt so awake. I was so energetic. I literally felt like coffee was flowing through my veins in the daytime. I did not get sleepy at 3 p.m. anymore. I actually slept shorter hours but got better sleep. So I used to sleep about 10 hours when I was eating gluten, and that's now almost always around 7.5, 8, and I feel ready for the day, ready to go. Wasn't bloated, pooping regularly. We all know how great that is. And it was the first time that I started to click and realize how food can affect you. Obviously gluten affects me very negatively, but it was such oh wow, just taking that out of my diet has made me feel like this. Around this time, I had a very interesting job that I actually really enjoyed. I worked for a company called Braveheart Christchurch, and I produced videos about all of the amazing people that lived in Christchurch who did amazing things for the city, like basically after the earthquake, to help rebuild. One of my most favorite videos that I did was with a lady called Professor Julia Ruckledge, and she was a professor at the University of Canterbury. I think she still is, to be honest. She's like a clinical psychologist, and she was studying the benefits of nutrition to help mental health. And so I know sometimes that can sound a bit like, okay, yeah, I'll have a broccoli and my depression's cured. It's not like that, but she was doing some really, really interesting research on concentrated, like, vegetables and fruit pills, and giving them to people that had mental health issues like depression or anxiety, and basically tracking their symptoms. I was getting some really positive results as well. And these sort of things in my life started to really show me that food can be such a healer, and it really brought back the joy of eating. You probably have realized I freaking love eating. And I loved eating all my childhood until I'd sort of decided in my mind that food's bad because it makes you put on weight, and that's bad, which it's not. And then basically that's when I moved to the UK. Around when I moved over here to the UK, I don't know why, but I just made myself promise never to look at calories on food ever again. Calories, as I said about the Fitbit tracker, were one of those things that I just obsessed over. And it's so hard to unassociate those numbers when you've had such a long time in a disordered eating pattern. And so I was like, I'm just going to try never looking at them. I'm just going to eat the food that I want to eat and not look at them. I'm going to learn more to listen to my body rather than to try calculate what I need. And that truly changed my life for the better. I'm not sitting here and saying that, oh, I'm just, me and my tummy are one. Like, we're not. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying every day to stop myself from going, oh, I won't eat now, I'm not hungry now. Like, yeah, I am. Go eat something. It's not a bad thing. Obviously, from musical theatre school to now, I've gained weight. I do not know how much weight I've gained, because another promise to myself was to never look at the scales again. I really know it's not that simple for a lot of people with disordered eating, but they were just like two of the things that I did that were just like, oh, okay, that's fine. But also I wanted to mention I'm in no way in a perfect place now. Absolutely not. I still slip up constantly. Just in January, I wanted to figure out how many steps I was doing in the day. So I put back on my Fitbit, and I was like, I'll just look at the steps. I don't need to look at anything else. But as the days went by, I started tracking my food again, and I started moving back into that cycle. And it was really scary because I'd promised myself I wouldn't do that. And all of a sudden, here I am tracking every single thing that I eat, not letting myself have any snacks. And that was just in January. And I had to just take the Fitbit off and yeet it. I'm like, right, I know how many steps I do in a day on average. I don't need to look at that anymore. It really shocked me how quickly I fell back into those patterns. Hello, buddy. Hi. But yeah, it was like quite a shock. Something else that I've really struggled with, but also at the same time given me insight into food being fuel, was when I was training for my karate grading last year. So this is for my black belt grading, and it is a very intense, rigorous training scheme. And maybe that's possibly the hardest thing I've ever done. Going into it, I knew there would be a lot of exercise because I've seen people do their karate grading training before, and how difficult it was. And I was quite conscious of not wanting to get back into disordered eating habits because of that. Because the gym is actually also one of the things that I don't tend to go to unless I need to, because my training schedule needed weights and I needed a treadmill and a cross trainer and stuff like that. I had to go to the gym, but I told myself once I had finished the grading, I wouldn't go back to the gym. And it was actually quite nice to just sort of go, thank you for your time, Jim. I'll see you later. And to be honest, and I've thought about this, I'm not going back until I get invited to do another grading for like a second dan black belt if I'm ever that lucky. I have a pretty good understanding of how to feel my body, and I just promised myself that I would eat when I was hungry, and eat a lot, because I was doing so much physical exercise. I had to eat a lot. Now, once I got to my grading and finished the grading and luckily got my black belt, which is crazy, and I can barely remember it. It was like 3.5 hours long, and I'm like, what happened? and there was 40 bloody fights in it. Anyway, got to the end of my grading, and because I'd been eating a lot more, because my physical levels, I needed to have that fuel in my body. You can't just immediately go back to eating how you did before you started that training. So I just sort of ate how I did, and I did gain whatever weight I'd lost back, I'm assuming. Still never weighed myself. And actually, that's kind of what I thought led into the January situation where I put the Fitbit back on. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'll never be able to be fully free of those body image issues and disordered eating issues, but trying my best. Sorry this has been a long video, but so that leads me into talking about how now there's calories on the menu in the UK. Now, I'm not saying that obesity isn't a problem, but I do not think that this is the best way to tackle it, because it's just sort of reinforcing the idea that calories is all you need to think about. I don't know anything about food, but I do know calories isn't the be all and end all to weight loss. I think that this change is going to affect a lot of people. It's already affected me. I didn't even realize. One of my favorite places to get takeaways from, Pho, which is a Vietnamese place, put up their calories on their Uber Eats menu. I don't know if I'd realized that that's what they were doing now, but when I was looking for food on my phone, I once again quite surprised. I got quite upset and quite anxious about seeing the calories that I was about to eat, which shouldn't be an issue because it's absolutely fine. It was just those old habits, the old way of thinking that I used to have. And it's really difficult not to want to pick a lower calorie option for myself, but it's something that I'm just going to challenge myself to not do, to not think about how guilty I feel, and never ever pick the lowest calorie option. I think that's going to be a good rule for me. I also think that I found really strange is I don't possibly see how it could be accurate. I don't think that chefs in places that have over 250 people are incredibly accurate at measuring out how much things that they put in the dishes, so it can only really ever be an estimate anyway. Obviously, the best way to learn about nutrition is to teach it in schools, so I think that would have been a better way for the government to help. Is it a lot more resources, time and money? Absolutely, but I think it would set up kids way better for life. And I also understand that maybe sometimes people want to see the calories for fitness reasons, health reasons, for losing weight reasons that are entirely their own. I never ever judge anyone for choosing what they want to put in their body for whatever reasons. But I don't see why that information couldn't just be readily available elsewhere, not plastered on the menu in front of everyone. Because it just seems like the government wants people to feel guilty about the food they're eating. They want people to be shocked by how many calories are in things instead of learning about nutrition. And it just really pisses me off. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into sort of how I run my channel and my Instagram and the way that I am. Don't know if you've ever noticed, but the food that I tend to make is for indulgence, for treats that you can have as many times a day as you want. I never ever describe things as unhealthy or bad, because whatever you think about Lincoln, he's catching a fly, because I think all the food that I bake is good food for my soul. I know that's lame. I just never want anyone to feel guilty about the food that they've baked from one of my recipes. I think we should only ever be enjoying it. Like, we've gotten a whole food group taken away from us already. Let's not restrict ourselves even further. So yeah, you'll never see me talking about calories. I don't do ads with brands that are for weight loss or for meal replacements, because that's just not what I want to put out in the world. What are you doing? You just eat whatever you want. Have you ever had body image issues? Definitely not. I just wanted to also say, if this new calorie rule is also affecting you, like, you are not alone. A lot of people are struggling with it. And I really think to the people with eating disorders that are really in the midst of those battles, really fighting anorexia or bulimia or whatever eating disorder they might have, this just can't help. And so my heart really goes out to them or you. And also, you don't need to have an eating disorder to feel upset about this change either. You're totally valid in how you want to feel. I don't have the answers or, in fact, even the tools on how to help, but I just wanted to make sure you know that you're not by yourself for that one. So I'm going to leave it here for tonight. I'm sorry this has been such a long video. My next video, I'm taking myself out on a dinner date. So I'm going to do that, and I don't think I've ever been out for like a nice meal by myself before, so we'll see how that goes. So tune in Friday. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.